It's August the 6th, 2021. Welcome. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the Nuclear Proctologist.org, and you can call me or call in 709-589-4406. You can also call that number 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. There's at least one honest person on this planet that is willing to talk about facts. Facts is the building right here is Reactor 3 in Japan's Fukushima. Number 4 is over there. These were 190-foot buildings. These are just two of 4 buildings that melted down. Each of them, just the reactor cores, was 100 times more fuel than Chernobyl's fuel. I'm going to play just a little 40-second intro song. It's an old song from the Second World War.
This cold and wicked war, when those hard-headed communists get what they're looking for, only one thing that will stop them and their atrocious fun. If General MacArthur drops a atomic bomb, there'll be fire, dust, and metal flying all around, and the radioactivity will burn them to the ground. If there's any commies left, they'll be all on the run. If General MacArthur drops a atomic bomb.
Yeah. So we're going to just talk about this, by the way, for anybody this is episode 2. And we're going to talk about the Fukushima nuclear meltdown for those who are not up to speed on it. There is a headline I want to cover that came out today. South Korea's ex-top prosecutors running for the president of the country. And he's even denying there was a leak. Does those buildings look like they're leaking, or do they look like they're destroyed to you? So imagine if he becomes president, what else he's willing to do. Former prosecutors now claim there was basically no radiation leak from the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan because the reactors didn't collapse. Which is the same thing as Arnie Gunnarsson is saying. And so this building didn't collapse, according to Arnie Gunnarsson. And his wife was a spokesperson for the nuclear industry for 2 decades. They think it looks like that over there. They know better because he made the assemblies. But so does an actual prosecutor who's supposed to do everything based on evidence. So from South Korea. It'd be interesting to know how many people he got in jail where he just made up evidence. That was Reactor 4. It's actually destroyed. That's Reactor 3. That's actually destroyed. The reactor cores were almost at the top of the building, and decades of reactor cores where the fuel pools at the top of the building don't exist. And they're calling that a leak? Media calls that a leak. The nuclear energy we use in Korea is different than Chernobyl. In Japan, the Fukushima nuclear reactors didn't blow up, says South Korea's future president. The earthquake and tsunami caused a lot of damage, but the reactors themselves didn't collapse. That's why there was basically no radiation leak. I think people who use the word leak and Fukushima should be sent in to that reactor building, because that's Medusa. You never come out if you go in there. The Fukushima nuclear accident was when the reactor cores melted down. There was a hydrogen explosion, blew the roof off. Does it look like it blew the roof off that building? That building was 190 foot high. You have no media to turn to on this planet. Both the International Atomic Energy Agency, Japanese government, acknowledged that there was a radiation leak. How can you call that a leak? If you owned a 190 foot building and someone sent you a picture and it looked like that, would you call that a leak? Do you understand that this is a planet killer? The people who call that a leak don't have a right to exist on this planet. They don't have a right to breathe the same air as me or you, or drink the water, or have a life. They don't have that right. They're calling it a leak to trick you and deceive you. I'm going to show you the evidence. And this is the Hiroshima and Nagasaki time of the year anniversary. Fukushima So Fukushima had a major earthquake and tsunamis and meltdowns, multiple nuclear meltdowns. These are catastrophic events for all species on the planet. These are not leaks. These are catastrophic events. 1 million sieverts outside of reactor 1 is not a leak. That's a lethal dose from football field away, from 300 feet away. Tsunami happened to run through many nuclear power plants, not just Fukushima. And the nuclear industry is so crazy, they actually covered it up. 15 reactors couldn't go into cold shutdown and had station blackout. Station blackout is one of the worst terminologies you can have. It meant that you lost all power and it's going to melt down for sure. This is reactor 2, the only building that looks like it's intact. But this actually liquefied and disappeared down to the earth in what's coined as a China syndrome. Now, reactor 3, this is what's left of the little stub of a 190-foot building, was the lethal mixed oxide uranium plutonium, where they reclaimed hot particles from nuclear missiles and nuclear fuel that's already gone through a chain reaction. So it's 2 million times worse. If you put it through the chain reaction again, now it's 1 billion times worse. It's truly the stupidest thing you can do. It's illegal in America to use mixed oxide fuel. Not only that, it's all going to hemorrhage all the time from these reactors. These in particular, there is no building. There's nothing left. If you happen to go inside of that, well, you can't stand right here, for instance. That's a lethal dose. If you did go inside of it with a robot, with a camera that actually worked, there's nothing functional inside of this wreckage, this little stump of a building that's left from a 190-foot building. The whole site was washed away in a major tsunami. And so they had no way of stopping it. So 680 kilometers of coastline was washed away. And so when you look at that coastline, the red numbers are people that are missing or dead, and the yellow numbers are the people that are missing, washed away. And they're corresponding nuclear power plants in those same areas. And nuclear power plants are always on the coastline. And we got 2 Danas.
Intensity of 7 was reported on the our studios.
When earthquakes hit newsrooms, it's easy to see straight away how powerful they are. And if they're out to sea, just off the coast, then the tsunami doesn't take long to turn up.
And this is a look, once again, at Kamaishi City in Iwate Prefecture. And it looks like the tsunami has been engulfing the port. You're seeing live footage of a tsunami engulfing the port area of Kamaishi City in Iwate Prefecture. We've been reporting earlier on that the meteorological agency has issued a warning for tsunami up to 6 meters deep, 6 meters high, and this is what's happening right as we speak. A large tsunami engulfing the port of Kamaishi in Iwate Prefecture. This is from our camera reporter in Miyagi. And it looks like the tsunami has engulfed several cities.
Images yet more terrifying emerge from the same Pacific coast. The huge tide just appears to eat anything in its path. Look at the road. Look how tiny the cars are.
From 7.9, one of the worst earthquakes ever in Japanese history.
In fact, it's the 7th most powerful earthquake in history. None of the other 6 were in areas anything like as populated as this. The Japanese Prime Minister appeared on TV to put into play a plan they'd rehearsed for years.
We will secure the safety of the people of Japan, and in order to minimize the damage, the government will make every effort possible. And we ask the people of Japan to continue to be cautious and vigilant and keep tuned in to the reports on the television and radio. And we ask the people of Japan to act calmly.
While that was all happening in the northeast of Japan, Tokyo, the capital,
So you can imagine, it was an incredible event. My heart goes out to the victims. So the radioactive plume covered the entire northern hemisphere. This is reactor 1 explosion coming up any second. Remember, there are 190-foot buildings, those little white squares. So that was a incredible detonation. Unit 2 completely liquefied. We've never seen that before. That's Unit 2. That's the heat signature up in the top right-hand corner. Unit 3, I'll show you that detonation in a second, the actual video. Remember, the buildings are 190 feet high. You can see the fuel pools now falling back down to Earth. The reactor cores and the fuel pools were ejected from the buildings. As you can see, the building is completely leveled, yeah? Reactor 3 and 4 side by side. Reactor 3 to the right, reactor 4 to your left. Mixed oxide fuel. Different view of it. So the media came out immediately, started lying, and said they plugged these destroyed buildings, that they said they plugged that with sawdust, newspaper, and glue. So the media immediately come out and stabbed you to death as quick as they could. And that the quake caused the meltdown at reactor 1. So, to your right, just a quick, again, reminder that the fuel pools at the top of these 190-foot buildings, they don't actually exist. So the columnar leak is an incredible betrayal. So this second line right here is disposition per square meter. So like the size of your coffee table or your kitchen table. In that whole community, this second row, United Nations Scientific Committee on Health Effects. So 39,000 becquerels, and a becquerel is an atom that's pulsing energy at the speed of light. If it gets in you or an animal or an insect or a bird, their bodies attack it with white blood cells, and ultimately it kills you. So you can see those communities over there, they're nasty, they're incredible doses. Fukushima City, now they're only talking about cesium. There's at least 1,000 other isotopes in those same spots that they're not acknowledging. But United Nations says there's no adverse health effects, despite the fact that there has to be. These communities are all with people in it. The second row shows you. The first row shows you how many people are in those communities. The second row here shows you the doses. But yet United Nations this year, for the anniversary, all the media come out and regurgitated that sentence. UN experts said radiation from Fukushima will have no negative health effects, despite the fact that it has to have negative health effects. Fukushima radiation did not harm the population, yet it's impossible. The numbers behind me, this row here, are the actual becquerels, atomic decays per second per square meter. So United Nations is obviously not anybody's friends. They hate everybody equally, obviously. So all of those communities got people in it, and there's the number of the people in that row, and here's the doses of just cesium. They're not checking for plutonium, the uranium, which is what the reactors run on. And the curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium, is the biggest byproduct of a nuclear meltdown and the radiated fuel. And to come out after 10 years and say there's no adverse health effects, so they have no right to exist. They have no right to be on the same planet as us. They should not be allowed to breathe the same air as us. These are disgusting parasites on our planet. That should terrify you that all the media came out and regurgitated that narrative. But the evidence is overwhelming that these are monsters. You have to be an actual monster to repeat that and to say that in the first place. You actually have to be completely disconnected from the human experience to regurgitate a narrative like that. Air samples in Tokyo, 270 times more contaminated. Again, because they're trying to trick you and manipulate you, they only acknowledge cesium-137. These numbers are, you're supposed to abandon Tokyo. Then radiation doses in the Northeast and Great Lakes in Canada, US are equal to the West Coast. And Japan says the air that people are breathing 150 kilometers from the plant is as radioactive as areas close to the meltdown. And that nuclear top cancer, doctor says nuclear radiation most carcinogenic thing that exists. This is absurd. 1 million sieverts and the homeless that are working there are not going to have any adverse health effects. We know at least 800 homeless have died there. fatal radiation levels, 10 sieverts per hour, but the United Nations says, no, nobody's going to get hurt. It's just, this planet has made a mistake by not holding them accountable. It's an incredible mistake not to hold them accountable. Western Tokyo may have been contaminated after the plume from number 2 core was exposed, says a Japanese professor. Well, that's reactor 2. That's reactor 3. So reactor 3 didn't contaminate anything, but reactor 2 did. Do you see how this actually works? How lunatic they actually are? It gets worse. That's reactor 3. Here's another picture of reactor 3. There's your loving media pretending they're on top of the building. Why are they doing that? Why is United Nations saying nobody is going to have any adverse side effects? And why is your media that regurgitated that narrative pretending they're on a building that don't even exist? You are in real danger. They're trying to exterminate you, and they're succeeding. If Fukushima containment vessels were damaged, Tokyo would be voluntarily evacuated. Well, it's gone. The reactor containment is completely gone. The reactor building is gone. There's nothing but a stub left. So Tokyo is supposed to be evacuated. So why would you have, that's a couple of 100 kilometers away, buddy. By the way, from Tokyo, you still got to evacuate 36 million people 200 kilometers away from your power plant. Why would you have that on your planet? You wouldn't if you understood it. It would never exist if you actually knew this a long time ago. It only exists because they're willing to fake being there. They're willing to lie to you, perpetually lie to you about every facet of this. The journalists felt a massive explosion, number 3 plant from 25 miles away, but they're on top of it, of a building that media representatives walk on top of the number 3 reactor building that don't even exist. You have to realize that you've got to be some really seriously evil entity to publish that and to pretend that you're actually there. Here's reactor 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 covering the northern hemisphere with radioactive fission products. I just came back from my research expeditions. Can't even find spiders or ants or birds or bees or wasps. Totally wiped out. And this, we're seeing this now symmetrically across the northern hemisphere. And so I was reporting on that, and they took my other channel down with 24,000 subscribers a couple of days ago. But because this is happening, we have no choice but to keep pushing forward. And so we have 9 people on my site. 450,000 times above detection levels of xenon-133, which burns a hole in your lung and goes into your bones and mutates your stem cells. These are catastrophic numbers, persisted for weeks. And this is a xenon dispersal covering the northern hemisphere with fission products. They're pretending that that building actually looks like this. It doesn't. All your media is doing that to you. All your universities is doing that to you. Worldwide. Not a single media worldwide has come out and said, that's not true. Greenpeace has never come out and said, that's not true. Arnie Gunnarsson, Helen Caldicott, Christopher Busby, any academic from any discipline has never come out and said that that's not really that building. Not a single person. Which is shocking. I hope you agree with me that that's shocking. They're wearing tungsten vests, the homeless are, but the media's up there walking around actually on top of a nuclear meltdown. And everything is hunky-dory. In fact, you can see what they're claiming it looks like. Here's an inside picture. This is what they claim it looks like. 100 feet above where my finger is. Apparently, though, I'm a horrible person for saying that that's not true. That's me right there. I went up there and checked it out myself, and that's not actually reactor 3. By the way, that's not reactor 4. That's reactor 4. Why are they telling you that that is reactor 4 when it actually looks like this? Does that concern you? They use cranes and they put these tubes there, they put panels on it. That's reactor 4 behind me. And he claimed then it looked like that, it looked like a normal reactor building. Right, so before they put the cover over it, that's what it looks like. So the cover doesn't physically touch it because that would crumble, right? Not only that, this is the official picture. Both of these are the official pictures. But they won't show you those two pictures together because you're going to say, well, that can't be true. Doomsday-like radiation release of fire is released at Unit 4. But Unit 4 is to the right, not the left, even though the left is the official picture, and so is the right. So here's some numbers of hitting North America. 1 million becquerels a square meter. That's forever numbers, by the way. Incredibly forever numbers. Rain with 20 million particles of radioactive iodine-131. That wiped out all the insects and the birds and the mammals. It's another study of another isotope. These are absurd numbers per liter of rainfall. 220 million atoms. Another one of sulfur in the air. These are hot particles each. But there's the official picture. No single weapon competes with potential damage from Fukushima. I'm going to play this clip. This is just a tiny fraction of media trying, and not trying, but successfully tricking you and disarming you and pretending they're on top of the building 100 feet above. If you've never seen this before, it's shocking. Let me just quick explain it before I play it. They're pretending that they're up here where my finger is to, and that everything looks like that back where they're to. I'm going to play the clip for you. I'll get it out of the way. All the media worldwide has done this. This is incredible if you've never seen it.
Where I was standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So why are, including Arne Gunnarsson, pretending that the building to the left is the real building when it actually looks like the right? Is it because it's an extinction level event? Is that why all the media and universities would pretend that? The research that I've done over the last decade is showing that that is actually true. It's an extinction event. And it's way worse than we could ever imagine. They're not faking that for something to do. They're not bored out of their mind and faking that. The CNN and ABC and BBC and CBS, and that's just a fraction of them, are not faking being on top of a building because they're bored today and that day. They're doing that because this is an actual extinction event. They're not calling it a leak because it's irrelevant. They're calling it a leak so you don't appreciate the danger and you might eat the food from Japan. If you do, you can have leukemia tomorrow because that's how it actually works. It's to me, it's a shocking betrayal, incredible. So they built this structure over this building. Here's a better picture of it. So the building doesn't exist. The fuel pools don't exist, and the fuel pools are at the very top of the building. The reactor is at the top of the building. And so the building actually looks like that. They tore a bunch of junk off it. They laid this structure over it. It doesn't physically touch it because there's no integrity, right? And if you zoom in on what they built there, you can see it's actually destroyed, like all the evidence that we already have. It's actually destroyed. There is no integrity there. But they pretend that it looks like this way above the remains of it, the little stub that's actually left. When you zoom right in, this is extraordinary. You'll never see these pictures anywhere else that I'm showing you. All of these are extrapolated from a single picture in a Japanese media that I was able to zoom in on, those particular types of pictures. And what it clearly shows is you're being manipulated and deceived and tricked and disarmed. So the buildings are completely destroyed, but they're pretending with the structure on the top that it's actually okay. But obviously when you zoom in, it's not. That's terrifying because there is nothing left. That's what it actually looks like underneath this. So it can't look like that, right? Quite the hoodwinking, isn't it? So that was the original picture that I had no concept. So I downloaded that picture and I started to zoom in, and I was able to zoom right in. It was such a high quality picture, and I was stunned what I was looking at. And you will not find this anywhere else on the planet. Nobody else on the planet has ever showed it to you. Arnie Gunnarsson is not going to show it to you, that's for sure. And the same thing with Reactor 4. They faked Reactor 4. Really something. When you zoom in on it, you really get a comprehension of what's going on. So Fukushima reactor site engulfed by steam. The first couple of years, this site, the steam, we're talking, the Geiger counters were only gamma Geiger counters. We're showing 4.7 sieverts per hour in the steam. These are lethal doses, but it's just gamma. It's not actually showing you the neutrons, which are plutonium and uranium, curium, hot particles. So it would have been hundreds of sieverts. Now this video is 40 times the speed of the steam. And that steam touches anything, that's lethal doses forever. So watch that video, but to the left what you see is there are 6 spots where the steam is coming out of the ground, where their gamma detectors were showing 10 sieverts. These are lethal doses for sure. You're going to die that day or that night with just a couple of moments exposure. But imagine, so like if you take a liter of rainwater, you put it in a bucket. You take another liter of rainwater, you put it in the same bucket. And so say you got 5,000 liter bottles during it rains, they're all going to fill up. Not just 1 liter here or 1 liter there, but all the bottles are going to fill up, right? That's the same thing you want to think about with the steam. The steam is like 1 liter bottles where each liter is 10 sieverts. And so when you start, the whole site disappears in steam, you're talking about millions of sieverts on that site. 5 is a lethal dose, see? Not 5 million, but 5. So I'm going to play that little video. To the right is 40 times normal speed. And to the left, you'll see there's 6 places where the Geiger counters were showing 10 sieverts per hour. So the video to the right is 40 times the speed. If you are anywhere there, you will die immediately. That's immediate. They abandoned this site for about 2 years. 6 places at 10 sieverts per hour. The water that they were pouring over the reactors when they pumped up from test wells is 2 sieverts at just beta. They're not checking for neutrons, which is uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, strontium, or curium. So it's not going to be 2 sieverts per liter. It's going to be 1,000 sieverts per gallon, or 20 sieverts per liter. So therefore, if you fill the tanks up at, just say it's only 2 sieverts per liter. If you fill the tank up, now last night's video, I broke down the tanks in incredible detail for everybody. They had 1,000 tanks in 2013, I showed last night. At 1,200 in 2014. They had 900 in 2017. They had 1,000 in 2019, and 2021 they had 1,000. I also showed that the ALP system and the Riva water separation system never functioned all the way up until at least August of 2014. I showed that documentation last night, and that after a couple of hours of using it, the system was so radioactive they couldn't get near it. Because if you put this kind of number through a filter, the filter is so radioactive, it's a lethal dose to walk past the building, let alone inside the building, see? So if you fill a tank up with that, you can't build another tank closer than a football field away. So the tanks are there to trick you into believing, same as the people on top of the buildings, is to trick you into believing that there's nothing going on. It's strictly about tricking you and manipulating and deceiving you. I know that might sound incredibly hard to believe, but it's not me, I'm showing you the evidence. I'm not making nothing up. I'm doing this the hardest way it can be done, where I dug up all the documentation and I don't talk about it unless I show it to you. I know that makes me a bad person bringing the evidence to the table instead of just a radio show and conjectures and opinions, but I decided that maybe giving you the evidence. So it's not just cesium, it's 1,000 kinds of radioactive materials are released from the reactors. Fukushima radioactive 2013 tanks may have already been emptied into the Pacific Ocean. And if you go scan through last night's video, when you get to the tanks, you'll see that there was no filtration system. They were dumping all the water for the first 4 years minimum straight into the ocean. They had no way. They were trying to channel it at one point. That didn't even work. You are in danger, and I'm only trying to get you educated and help you see the light. And there's all of these effects from radiation. I'm not going to try to go into great detail about it, but the Bromson-Long phenomenon is radioactive fallout pulses energy in every direction, like a bomb explosion goes in every direction. So an atom floating around is pulsing energy up to 20 feet away at the speed of light almost, and they hit each other at the speed of light and change direction. That's known as the Bromson-Long effect, which is a braking. So it's going at the speed of light, it brakes, changes direction. That creates an X-ray effect. That wipes out all the insects and the bacteria in your forest. This is why you're seeing incredible forest fire. But this is also why you're seeing global warming, because there's so much radiation. Pre-Fukushima, there was so much radiation, you couldn't go anywhere on the planet without your Geiger counter going crazy. But what that meant was, say your Geiger counter was doing 30 counts per minute. That's 30 pulses a minute, say for instance, where it was causing the Bromson-Long effect. So that was always global warming for 75 years. Nagasaki, Hiroshima is global warming. These tanks are built to trick you. You can't fill up the tanks at 2 sieverts an hour, and they're only measuring beta. What about alpha? What about gamma? What about neutrons? When you start adding the numbers up, it's at least 10 sieverts per liter, say. Because that's how that science actually works. It's okay.
Lewis! Mom! Mommy! Mama!
What?
Hi.
That's me. Mommy! So you can imagine being on the site, all these radioactive fallout is pulsing energy at the speed of light and changing direction by braking. It's lethal doses all over the site. Okay, well, look, I got it here actually for you. In 2013, there was 1,000 tanks. In 2014, was 1,200 tanks. In 2014 in the winter was now 1,000 tanks. In 2017, 2017 was 900 tanks. In 2019, in this line with my fingers to 1,000 tanks. And in 2021, this year, is 1,000 tanks. You had 1,000 tanks in 2013, 900 tanks in 2014, or 1,200 tanks in 2014, 900 tanks in 2017, 1,000 tanks in 2019, and you still got 1,000 tanks in 2021. Do you really think they're filling up tanks, or do you think they're actually tricking you? I'm just showing you the evidence, and the evidence clearly shows that they're tricking you. And there's many headlines about many sieverts throughout the site. So when you see a headline that says resulting destruction because of an earthquake around these power plants can reignite chain reactions, criticalities, which is nuclear meltdown starting up again. Resulting destruction will take half of planet Earth with it. Not because it's going to blow up the planet, but because of the radioactive fallout and the Bromson lung effect. So this Yale professor was trying to manipulate it when he said all of humanity will threaten for thousands of years if the rods in the Unit 4 pull touch. So all of humanity will be threatened for thousands of years. Again, one thing you notice that's really stark for me anyway, is that they only talk about humanity, and you can't destroy humanity without destroying all the species, which humanity, by the way, is dependent upon. So they're saying if the building looks like that, all of humanity is threatened for thousands of years. But guess what? If the fuel rods touch, they're at the top of the building. There is no top to the building, so it happened. And the Yale professor, if they don't know it happened, we're in a lot of trouble, right? Again, every university worked extremely hard to lie to you and manipulate you. I'm obviously a terrible person because I'm showing you the facts that nobody else has ever showed you. How come nobody else? When the NRC was questioned a couple of days after, this is just, the date will show up here, they refused to answer literally any questions. They kept saying, no comment. So they're being questioned a few days after the nuclear meltdown starts.
We're here to get a briefing on the ongoing crisis associated with the nuclear power plants in Japan. I'm very privileged that we have the executive director for operations at the NRC here, Bill Borchardt.
I couldn't speculate on that.
An expert, a true expert as well.
Again, I wouldn't wish to speculate.
So we feel very blessed that you could come and stand in until the chairman comes, and we really do welcome you.
Again, I can't speculate.
Well, teaching all of us the lessons that we have to take away from what is happening.
I couldn't speculate on that. What we believe is a significant amount of fuel damage in the three operating reactors, units 1, 2, and 3, which were operating at the time of the earthquake. and then because of the spent fuel problems that are in Unit 4
Right.
of that reactor facility. All of those factors taken into combination, if that same type of source term, that same type of radiological problem existed in the United States, our recommendation to state governments would be to evacuate
Okay.
out to 50 miles.
Well, that's a really good point, because I'm asking you, do you know how many people live within 50 miles of San Onofre nuclear power plant?
I do not know.
Well, I'm going to tell you how many people. 7.4 million people.
Okay, so this is the reactor core of Fukushima. This reactor 4 obviously is gone. But above it was 4 decades of these reactor cores are stored up here. So every 18 months they store maybe half the reactor core in the pools, those 2 pools, because there's no repository in Japan or anywhere else on the planet. Therefore, these pools are actually stuffed up to 5 times beyond normal, what they consider normal capacity. Because they were supposed to come up with a repository to get rid of this stuff. So, by the way, the fuel pools boil off about 120,000 liters of radiation a day, because the reactor cores are put in the pool because they're still extremely hot and they're still splitting the atom. There's no containment, and so all of that is boiled off all day into the environment. There's that time there was 440 operating plants. Now there's 414. They closed. Now, so when you compare Fukushima reactors, which are 800 tons of pure uranium plutonium, Chernobyl was 200 tons, but it wasn't pure uranium plutonium. It was mostly graphite as a moderator. So it actually wasn't a lot of radiation compared to a single reactor core. But what did Russia, of course, came out, said it's 100 times each reactor in Japan, the biggest in the world at the time, are 100 times more uranium plutonium per reactor, not counting the spent fuel pool, but per reactor.
The fact that the reactor in Japan is 100 times more powerful than the one in Chernobyl.
And, of course, it blew up. But so 100 times more uranium plutonium per reactor core, and at the top of the building is decades of reactor cores that are also gone. So when you look at Chernobyl, which was tiny, but it was brutal, but tiny compared to Fukushima, there was 3 million children permanently affected by the radiation. So David Suzuki said that if reactor 4, which is the building that they're faking to the right, if that goes as bye-bye Japan because of radioactive fallout, and you should evacuate North America because of the radioactive fallout, if the building to the left looks like that. So listen to him talk about it for a moment.
3 out of the 4 plants were destroyed in the earthquake and in the tsunami. The 4th one has been so badly damaged that the fear is if there's another earthquake of a 7 or above, that building will go, and then all hell breaks loose. I have seen a paper which says that if, in fact, the 4th plant goes under an earthquake and those rods are exposed, it's bye-bye Japan, and everybody on the west coast of North America should evacuate. Now, if that isn't terrifying, I don't know what. Fukushima is the most terrifying situation I can imagine.
So he's saying if the building to the left gets destroyed like it is, you should evacuate Canada and United States. And this is why your loving media is pretending that it never got destroyed. That's why your universities are, and all your media is doing this, not just in Canada, United States, but worldwide, are doing everything they can to murder us. But we're not allowed to say that they should be held accountable. And if you do, they'll take down your site. Because they hate us, I guess. They despise us, I guess. They despise all the species, and they despise their own children, obviously. This year they released 700 plus pictures. And they redacted every picture. Now, so it makes you wonder, why did they release 700 pictures and then turn around and redact the pictures? You can see how it's pixelated. Why would you do that? Why release these pictures and then it's all, the reactors themselves are pixelated? It's bizarre. The whole story is bizarre, isn't it? Why pixelated? But what is interesting about this is this building right here. This is reactor 4, where it's still pixelated. You can see the pixelation. But all of this is pixelated, including this one pixelation here where it's totally blotched out. That's the common spent fuel pool. It had at least 10 million pounds of reactor cores in it. Why is that all pixelated in these new pictures that came out in January of this year? Look at that. Why did they pixelate all of that out? Why did they release those pictures is the most important question, Mike. They were trying to warn you that there was more to this story. We were in real danger. Also, we noticed that when they went over to reactor 5 and 6, you zoom in on reactor 5 and 6. Let me explain before I zoom in for you. That's reactor 5, and that's reactor 6. You can see that's pixelated, and the pump house is all pixelated. I'm just going to zoom in on those two pictures. Look at that. Why is that all pixelated? See the damage to this tank there? Years ago, I used to show this picture just to show you the power of the tsunami on the coastline. I was attacked, and the people that attacked me were making videos claiming Dana's making it up. That's not Fukushima. The waves never hit Fukushima and done damage like that at Fukushima. Every time I would show this picture, I would get attacked for showing the picture. But these are actual pictures. Why is everything redacted? Well, because they also melted down. Why did the media pretend they're on a building that don't exist? Because we're in real danger. The species are being exterminated. I'm doing the research. I just had to come back home because they took down my channel with 24,000 subscribers and 1,600 videos. Not much I can do about it. I started up this site in desperation to try to get the story back out there, right? And this year I had done 3 videos on 2,000 pictures from TEPCO's website, but I also had the story that they were talking about was happening on those days, and pictures of those days where they were claiming they were there and they were restoring power. It was obvious that simply wasn't true. That was 3 very powerful videos that I worked simply incredibly hard at. Just going to show you a couple of models. It's not going to be a long show tonight. I'm exhausted. I got the truck back today, and the garage one is $650 plus taxes, and who knows what else might have came along to do a radiator and a water pump. I got it done today for $150. I bought the water pump myself for $100. I bought 2 jugs of pure antifreeze for $50. It had to be the right GM, right? And I bought the radiator. I ordered it last week when I was out in the woods on the research because I knew it was had a bad leak in it too. Might as well, if you're going to do the water pump, you got to take everything apart. You might as well fix that at the same time, right? So that's also fixed. That's a big deal. And we done the exhaust yesterday, because it cracked right off. I showed a video of it yesterday. So now I can tow the boat now and the trailers and the equipment again. So super stressed out the last couple of days with everything else. But that on top of it was overwhelming for me. We got that resolved. And I hope I can sleep tonight because I couldn't sleep last night. I'm more stressed than I thought I was. I don't want the story to go away. So now tomorrow I'm gonna repost a video tomorrow of Hiroshima and Nagasaki's anniversary from last year because it was such a good video. I happen to have it. I'm going to post that tomorrow. And I might stream it live just because. And so I'll do an introduction, then we'll stream that, and then I'll come in and close the show after. But we got to get the story back out there. So if a single particle can cause a tumor, this is why a deteriorating plant threatens mass extinction around the world, because all the species have to breathe. And the species that live on the ground, where radiation is landing, of course, as the ground, is pulsing energy every second, it exterminate them. This is what our research is showing. So I was reporting this from ground zero. They panicked and took down my site a couple of days ago while I was actually out on the expedition. And we worked so hard to go on this expedition. We've been doing this for many years, since the nuclear meltdowns. So this is the radioactive fallout of just xenon. That's another model. This is the neptunium dispersal over North America from TEPCO's data. So that's super important radioactive fallout. This is a plutonium-239 dispersion from TEPCO's data. That's super. This is all documentation of. Yeah, same time tomorrow night. My shows are the same time every night. It's just because we started doing the expeditions and I was home for a couple of days, I was doing it at different times. Radioactive dispersal models covering the Pacific and the Atlantic and Europe and North America and the Northern Hemisphere and radioactive fission products. And just one hot particle can cause a cancer. But that's going to be true for species, right? It's not just humans that are affected by radiation. So Tokyo, where they're having the Olympics, 29 million becquerels a square meter. So I just wanted to put out a video to get people up to speed on Fukushima because they took down all my videos. I can't really do it justice tonight, but I wanted to put out a little blurb till I put together a full video and post it. So people got some kind of reference that they can use. Some kind of reference that they can talk about. Work at plant to go on for 10,000 years. That's inaccurate, because that's what a nuclear meltdown never goes away. The China syndrome never goes away. Insurance person told me people from Fukushima may not be able to get life insurance or cancer insurance. Local official, it's better for you to leave Fukushima because brain neurons don't regenerate. And top cancer doctor, nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. Just a single atom can make you sick for the rest of your life. And so when you see air samples in Tokyo, I just showed you 29 million becquerels per square meter after a rainfall in Tokyo. And here's another one showing you the air that you're breathing is completely saturated, and they're only acknowledging cesium, which is gamma. Your Geiger counters can only find gamma. It's not going to find beta or alpha or neutrons, particles. And it's not very good at finding gamma either, by the way. You're hoodwinked. So when you see this documentation, this is actual document study shown 450,000 times pulses of energy per second. These are crazy numbers. See, your Geiger counter is not going to show the xenon. It's not going to show iodine 129 or the iodine 131. It's really not. Does that mean it didn't happen? But even though we got the documentations from the original reports that this saturated, all these different isotopes saturated the northern hemisphere. You're in real danger, and the problem is because they got away with this now for 10 years, they become more bold and they become more arrogant because generation after generation of them inbreeds, right, have come out with the same lies. They believe the lies now. And now they've gone genocidal and omnicidal. They're attempting to exterminate all species. And this descending opinion site here, that's not an opinion, I provide the documentation. Apparently it's a threat to them. And so they have destroyed me now. I have to rebuild the site. I'm currently at 35 subscribers. A few days ago I had 24,000. Oh, now I got 37. And so slowly I'm starting to rebuild my site. But I don't have the support anymore. Right? There are a few people out there with an incredible moral compass that have contributed, yesterday, for instance, a donation that is going to keep us afloat for a week. And that has literally saved me absurd amount of misery. We got the operation almost back up and running. I got to rebuild subscriber base. Hopefully donors will start donating because the few that can find me, if they don't kick in and help me, we can't recover, see? I'll keep doing what I'm doing here at all. But it's not fair. We're going to lose all the research. We can't finish out the research. I can't have that happen. So I'm struggling to get back out on the research. And I'm busted up. I haven't had a moment's, not a second relief per se where I can come to a stop. I'm still not even unpacked from the expedition where I just came back from. I had to come back because they took down my site. I want to get back out there and do the species count, but it could take me a week, you know what I'm saying, I hope it don't, but it could take another week for me to get back out there. I'm not going to say I might not get back out there because I'm not going to. It still hasn't sunk in that I lost 24,000 subscribers and 1,600 videos. Okay. Oh my. So tomorrow night at the same time, we're going to stream last year's anniversary Nagasaki, Hiroshima, with some extra stuff added in. Mostly all academic studies. And we got to do that because those victims and families deserve someone out there that's honest. They deserve someone to come out and tell the truth, right? And so we're obligated to come out and try to counter the massive propaganda, the massive lies, the massive misrepresentations. So tonight we got 12 thumbs up. How many thumbs down we got tonight? I wonder. We had one long before the show started. Last night we had 5 down 2 hours before the show started, but the filter kicked them loose, right? We have 28 views. I have 5 thumbs down tonight. Imagine that. For what? Why would I get 5 thumbs down for tonight? What did I do to deserve 5 thumbs down? How does that actually work? You can see how evil they actually are. They took down my site with 24,000 subscribers. That's not good enough. They got to come to my humble site where I got 28 views and give me 5 thumbs down for showing you the documentation. Does that not show you they're evil and that they're completely disconnected from any type of humanity, that they have no attributes of humanity? I mean, my goodness, I'll show it to you because the Google filter might fix that later, right? But have a look at it. I'll bring it up for you. So look at it behind me. 5 thumbs down, 13 thumbs up, and I only got 28 views. And all I'm doing is showing you the documentation. It's an absurd amount of work to do what I'm doing, by the way, to put this whole operation together, and I'm attacked because of that. I personally think they should all be arrested and killed. They should be exterminated for what they're doing. They're exterminating us and all the species, but we shouldn't call for their extermination. How does that actually work? They shouldn't be held accountable. They're not monsters all of a sudden for doing what they're doing. They're not scumbags and degenerates for doing what they're doing. Well, you're wrong. They are 100% unequivocal degenerate monsters and scumbags and cowards. They're actually cowards to come here and attack me with 37 subscribers and 32 views for an hour stream on the most important subject in human history. So hour and 5 minutes, I'll give it up at that because I'm exhausted, and it'll be months and months and months before I get to take a break because we got to rebuild this site. We got to continue to research. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going to war every day for you and your friends and your family and your loved ones, because I am not a coward and I am here to go to war. I am here to go to war against these cowards, these monsters, these... coward is the best way to describe them. These are cowards. There's no other way to describe the people in the nuclear industry. There is, I'm sure, but you don't want to hear me cursing. I mean, they're actually cowards. So good night, everybody. God bless everybody. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, it's a pretty humble thing to have to start over during an extinction event. It's a pretty coward thing to take down my site. I never really got many views anyway, but that was over 12 years of hard work, 1,600 videos. And to do that to me, just to silence the only true opposition, shows you that they don't have a leg to stand on. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a nice night. Have a nice day tomorrow, folks. I got all the major work done on the vehicle, which taken absurd amount of stress off me. And I can't possibly articulate how grateful I am. I really can't. I'm sure you can imagine it, but I wish I could articulate how incredibly grateful I am tonight to say that the radiator, the water pump, the exhaust are done. We can start towing equipment again. And how important that statement actually is. I'm sure you'll recognize the importance of what I'm saying. God bless everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, hopefully. If not, the video will be here waiting for you when you get a chance, where we're going to cover Nagasaki, Hiroshima. I'll be here live, but I'll be replaying last year's stream because that was a great stream. But I'll be adding anything new in that I can find between now and then. Have a great night, everybody. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you show up later. God bless.